I don't type on. And then I talked to Cheryl this week, and she said, oh, you know, we mail them now to the shut-ins. They like to get the sermon. So I did type it up. So I usually just use bullets up here. So I don't know how many of you follow me this without my bullets, but we'll see. When I start babbling, just maybe there's going to be a little sign. And I also realized I kind of feel short here. I'm normal. So today we're talking about mad. You ever get mad? I get mad. I get really mad sometimes. There's parents sitting out here that now one of you that's got a kid hasn't been mad. Sometimes they have to show them our unpleasant side. Maybe you're not a parent, what about a spouse? Every now and then you get a little upset with your spouse, your significant other happens. I was married long enough to know that does occur. Then what about siblings? Brothers and sisters? Oh, the worst fights I ever had were with my brothers and sisters growing up. I had two older sisters who could really work me over, and they just knew what to do to get me going. I liked to bite when I was a kid. It was my form of protecting myself from them. And they would tease me, and they'd put their hand on my forehead like this and hold me away from them. So I'd be going like this, and yeah, that was their way of getting me going. But that's not the kind of man I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about being mad at God. Ever felt that way? Have you ever felt that He deserted you, cheated you, or He forgot you? Have you felt that you don't deserve whatever is happening to you? And it's unfair. It's not right. I think that one time or another, most of us felt that. Something awful has happened, sickness or death or tragedy, some type of temptation in our life. But we felt, God, why? And we've been mad, we've been angry. We're not happy with God. And it happens. For the most part, I think I'm pretty good at accepting my shortcomings. I know I messed up. Doesn't mean I admit it. I don't always admit it. But inside, I think we all kind of know, I do that for, I made a bad decision. Accept the consequences in my life. Trying to realize that for my decision. My children had a great teacher, the Lowry family that helps us here. They actually were here yesterday donating stuff for the rummage sale. But we met this woman now, they're good friends of ours forever. They were my children's third grade teacher. And I knew I was going to like her as a teacher. When I walked in that classroom, and across the whole top of the bulletin board, in great big letters, it said, consequence. A result of your actions. And I kind of think somewhere along the line we stopped teaching that. And some of our younger generation might not understand it. But a lot of things that happen in our lives, things that might make us mad at God, are the result of our actions, of the choices we've made, of the decisions we've made. But like I said, I think I'm pretty good at accepting my shortcomings and why things happen. And those of you who know me, I have no trouble sharing my personal life. For the last 9 years, I've dealt with my share of concerns. I've had some grief. I had trials and problems and issues. For the most part, I understood them. I don't get mad at God. Sometimes it's a fact of life. When I lost both my parents over the last few years, it was difficult. And I know some of us out here are struggling with that right now. But as a Christian, I was able to celebrate and be thankful for the long and full life they lived. I appreciate the fact that God blessed me with parents who loved me and who led by example, who taught me right from wrong, the importance of being a good person, and that Christ should be first in all that I am and all that I do. So I wasn't mad at God. I knew that they were in a better place, and one day I'd see them again. I was thankful for what He had given me. And I had that crazy accident where that individual ran out in front of me, and I hit him. And when I got to him lying on the road, he wasn't breathing. It was traumatic. I don't drive down that stretch of road today that I don't see that. And I jumped out of the car and ran to him, and pulling on my basic first aid training and my CPR, I got down on my knees and started, and then God blessed me with an angel. This angel was in the form of a passing by EMT who jumped out of her car and ran and said, "Can I help you?" and took over the CPR. Ironically, she was a relative of Christine and Margaret's. She took over the CPR and saved his life, brought him back. He was transferred to one hospital and airlifted, and he's still, as far as I understand, I was never allowed to speak to him. The lawyers kind of dictate a lot of things in this world. But the Bible tells us that the good we do is paid back tenfold. The weekend before that accident, I had the opportunity, Margaret had called me, and she had an issue going on she needed some help with. And it wasn't a lot of work, it wasn't a big issue, it was just something she couldn't do on her own, and she needed a little guidance from something that I could help her with, and it was a matter of a few hours, maybe 7 hours in my life. But God paid me back with that by allowing this man to be spared and saved. I wasn't paid back tenfold, I was paid back 10 times, 1,000-fold. So again, I wasn't mad at God. I was thankful for the blessing of that angel that showed up and that his life was spared and that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But then, like after all things special like that, the impending lawsuit. Though I wasn't charged or ticketed, I was still sued because it's what often happens after accidents like that. So there was the lawsuit. This time I was able to be thankful for insurance. And I don't know if always that's something I thank God for. But my insurance company paid out $695,000, I believe, but none of my personal assets or retirement or anything were touched. And I was so thankful for God that you know, we didn't lose our home, and we hear awful stories, and that I was well insured. So then after that, I made a divorce. Now I can't imagine a divorce without some anger. I can say mine was probably better than most. But this anger, again, in me was not directed towards God. I split it equally between my ex and myself. I took the time to realize that, you know, maybe there's things I could have done different or worked it different. But I was able to be thankful for God that I was able to keep my children and stay with me in our home. Because they were then and they still are the most important part of my life. And so to be able to thank God for that and have that and that comfort from them. Then, hard to believe 3 years ago Thursday, I entered the hospital with what I thought was going to be a minor infection. Like, looking back on that day, post that came up on my Facebook the other day, someone said, "Just checked into St. Mary's for what looks like to be a 3 to 4 day stay." Yeah, we know it wasn't that. The minor infection turned into a life-changing event. Took 10 weeks in the hospital, 19 surgeries, and months of recuperating. But again, I wasn't mad at God. When I came through from my coma, I was thankful that I was still alive. My first 2 surgeries, they didn't think that was going to be the case. However, with a strong faith and prayers and many, I was healed. My initial diagnosis, I would walk again. And just, I'm so thankful for God, His mercies, and what He's done in my life. So I moved on from that, but then 2 years ago, this same week, I entered the hospital again with a little infection in the opening of my toe. It just hadn't cleared up from the initial illness. Again, through faith and prayer, God was there for me, brought me back. However, 6 months later, things really changed. And I took this huge step backwards. And after a vacation from Kansas, I woke up and that toe infection was laid wide open. And it was just unbelievable what the change overnight was. And we rushed from our place in the southern tier to ECMC, and they told me, "It's in the bone. Infection's moved to the bone." So they started pretty aggressive. They put a PICC line on me, and after a week in the hospital, they sent me home with a little fanny pack with a pump. I was given antibiotics 24 hours a day for 6 weeks, and this was going to get in there, and it was going to fight that infection. And we all went back to praying and turning to God. And after 4 weeks of that, I went in for more testing to see how I was doing, and moved to the second bone. Now I'm getting concerned because it's moved up into my foot. So we take the next step of treatment plan. And God blessed me with a great doctor. He put just wonderful people in my life, doctors and nurses. And this doctor and I, we're going to get aggressive. We're to the hyperbaric chamber. You know what it is? This pressure-treated chamber. They put you on a gurney, they put you in, and it's all glass, and you lay in there, and it's like you're in an airplane. Your ears pop, and it's kind of miserable, but amazing what you get used to. But I got to do that for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 8 weeks. Yay! It's like, and I will tell you that that drive and going through that emotionally, financially, and physically was draining. And it took a lot out of you. But I was determined that I was going to do this, and I was going to make sure, because I was not going to have an amputation. Amputation scares me. It's like a slippery slope. Starts with part of your foot, next thing you know, you don't have a leg. And I'm so afraid of going down that. So I turned to God and I prayed. My faith was strong. I was following my treatment plans. I was listening to the doctors, which everybody knows I'm not a big fan of. I was eating well. I was keeping my sugar numbers where they should. But after 6 weeks of that treatment, I got some discouraging news. The infection was still spreading, moving further down the bone. And my doctor said we need to amputate. I begged him. Doc Davison, that guy said, you know, please. And he said, well, listen, you've got 2 weeks of hyperbaric chamber treatment left. We'll keep going. But every other day we're doing x-rays. If it moves at all, you'll be in surgery. We're amputating immediately. I'm not going to take your leg and some part of your foot or toe, whatever we have to. We're not going to let it get out of control. But we'll keep trying because I know how important this is to you. So, I left there, clinging to my faith and praying to God for the miracle I needed. He actually said something to me like, unless you got a direct line upstairs, it's not looking really good. So I was still hopeful, scared, but I still wasn't mad at God. I still had my faith in him and believed he's going to help me. This is good. We'll make it through this. I'm not giving up. We're still trying. So I left to go down, let's say, to camp. Get closer to God, and like that's where I'm close to God camp. You can't find God in the wilderness there, you're not finding him. So I got done, I'm standing by my buddy's fire. And it was early in October, it was cold. And so I was snuggled up next to it, like, what are you burning? What is that smell? So I looked down and I noticed that the gauze and the dressing on my toe was fully inflamed, shooting up about 18 inches. We had dumped liquid on it and stopped on it to get it out. And my big toe and the one next to it were completely burned, 3rd-degree burns. I've always tried to have the outlook that rather than be mad at God for putting thorns on roses, that I would praise him for putting roses among the thorns. But not now. I was mad. I was mad as hell. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was mad at God. I had gone through so much in the last several years, and my faith was strong, and I was following what I should. I was doing everything I could. And I had been through so much. Why did he put me through all that and then let this happen? If his plan was to take my foot, why didn't he just do it in the beginning? Why did I have to live through all that? I didn't understand it. I understand the pain, the hardship on myself, my children, my family, my friends. It was so unfair, and I was so angry at God. I went into the hyperbaric chamber on that Monday, and my doctor just shook his head. You hate that toe, don't you, Dave? It looks that way, and I'm just discouraged. He said, well, we'll proceed with the plan, continuing the next 2 weeks of hyperbaric treatment. And I think he did it more to appease me, not in any belief that he had that it was going to accomplish anything. But I didn't think it was going to hurt. He thought it wasn't going to hurt anything, and it would maybe keep me a little calmer because he could see I was probably on the verge of going off there. But then my miracle occurred. You see that burn? As it began to heal, so did my infection. Apparently, burns heal from the inside out. And on rare occasions when this is happening, burn will pull the infection out and heal the infection also. So my infection, my toe, my foot was saved because I burned it, because I lit it on fire. You see, sometimes we forget. We don't know God's plan. We don't know what's happening and why and what the big picture is. We don't see it. We act as if God is like us, with human emotions and shortcomings. Author Marianne Williams said, "We have made up a God in our image because we are angry and judgmental. We have projected those characteristics onto him, but God remains who he is and always will be. He is the energy, the thought of unconditional love. He cannot think with anger or judgment. He has mercy and compassion and total acceptance. The Bible tells us in the book of Lamentations, for men are not cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love." It's a great book, and I'm not a reader. They put it in movie form, I'm going to watch it. It's a great book called Knowing God by J.L. Packer. And in it, it says some of these things, which are really the heart of this. Being angry at God is something that many people, both believers and non-believers, which that's kind of interesting. Non-believers get mad at God. And we've wrestled with throughout time. When something tragic happens in our lives, we ask God the question, why? Because that's our natural response. What we're really asking, though, is it's not why God? Why me, God? We take it as personal. And this response indicates two flaws in our thinking. First, as believers, we operate under the impression that life should be easy, and that God should prevent tragedy from happening to us. Actually, that is in direct opposite conflict with what the Bible tells us. We're told that life, especially for Christians, will have troubles, trials, and temptations. We'll see more temptations than others. The devil's going to work at us harder sometimes. He's going to see, you're with Jesus, you're on his team, I watch it. And sometimes as Christians, we're like, why? Why is it harder on me? We'll get worked on harder. We have to rely on our faith more. When God does not prevent tragedies and problems, sometimes we get angry with him. Second, when we do not understand the extent of God's sovereignty, we lose confidence in his ability to control circumstances, to control the people and the way that they affect us. And we get angry with God because he seems to have lost control of the universe, and especially control of our lives. When we lose faith in God's sovereignty, it is because our frail human flesh is grappling with our own frustrations and our lack of control over events. As humans, we like to control things. We want to be in charge of our destiny. We tend to forget that we can turn to God and it's really in his hands. But ironically, when good things happen, we're all too often attributed to our own achievements and success. I did this. This is because of me. This is the things I've done. I've earned this. When bad things happen, though, we don't think that. We don't think it's because I did it. No, we're quick to blame God, and we get angry with him for not preventing it. See, this represents the first flaw in our thinking, that we deserve to be immune to unpleasant circumstances. Tragedies, trials, they bring home the awful truth that we are not in charge. All of us think at one time or another that we can control the outcomes or situations, but it's God who's in charge of all his creation. Everything that happens is either caused by or allowed by God. Matthew chapter 10 tells us that not a sparrow falls to the ground, nor a hair from our head without God knowing about it. We can complain, we can get angry or blame God for what is happening, yet if we trust him and yield our bitterness and pain to him, acknowledging the prideful sin of trying to force our own will over his, he can and He will grant us peace and strength to get through any difficult situation. It might not be the answer we were looking for, it might not be the answer we understand, but we can feel that peace and that guidance from Him. We can be mad at God for many reasons, so we will all have to accept at some point that there are things we cannot control or even understand with our finite minds. Regina Brett said it's okay to get angry with God. He can take it. God already knows what's in your heart and on your mind. So in times of trouble, turn to Him in prayer and faith. Confess your fears, your doubts, your sins, and your angers. All while asking God for strength and forgiveness. Remembering, you do not and cannot fully understand His plan for you. Remember that your consequence is often dictated by your actions. Motivational speaker Nikki Volotsik said, I have the choice to be mad at God for what I don't have or to be thankful for what I do. Sometimes only God will know why He has allowed a trial, and sometimes He will reveal His purpose to us. Sometimes it's because He's preparing us for a greater thing, or it's part of a greater plan. Sometimes it is to show us how weak our faith and trust in Him is, and it allows us to change. Try to give us an opportunity to build our faith in a way nothing else can. I know that at the most difficult times in my life, I have felt closer and more connected to God than ever before. As I lay in that hospital bed, I felt the presence of the Lord working on me, through me, and with the people around me that I ever had in my life. The chorus from the song Angels Among Us states, I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours to show you how to live, to teach us how to give, and to guide us with the light of love. That light of God that guides us through all trials and troubles. What I learned from my trials over the past several years has brought me closer to God and has made me a better person. Looking back, I can see now that I was at a very low point in my life. I was feeling lost and alone after losing my parents and my wife and my divorce, and facing the fact that my children were growing up and they relied on me less and on themselves more. My illness showed me how blessed I am. The amazing friends and family I had, the amount of prayers and well wishes, the donations to my benefit, those who watched over my children and made meals and cooked after them, called and checked on them. The visitors, the phone calls, the cards, the letters. I remember one day when I was in the hospital, I was speaking with a friend on the phone. I was asking this friend, please don't come visit me today. I was so tired and worn out from visitors and well-wishers and everything in my life that I just wanted to relax. And I heard my roommate. He was on his phone. He was begging a neighbor of his to go get his mail. I only remember having one visitor in the several days we were roommates together. He was so excited that this coworker was coming to see him. He told every nurse, every doctor, anybody walked in the room, he shared, come to see me, I got a visitor coming. I felt so guilty and ashamed, but I was so blessed and still so appreciative. God used my illness to help me realize how wonderful my wife really was and to draw me closer to Him. I came to learn that I'm not a Christian because I have it all together. I'm a Christian because I'm weak and I need my Savior. You see, I can't brag about my love for God because, like most of us, I fail Him pretty much on a daily basis. But I can brag about His love for me because it never fails. No one is more secure than the one held in God's hand. Strength, safety, peace, and security, they're not found in the absence of trials or problems or dangers. Oh, they're found in the presence of God in us. I've never met a strong person with an easy path. Please bow your head in prayer. God, I'll admit sometimes I get mad at you. Sometimes I'm disappointed. Please forgive me. I know you always have my best interest in mind. Even in tragedy, I trust you. Help me to have a strong faith, a faithful heart, a forgiving nature, and a spirit of love in all that I am and in all that I do.